Hello everybody, thanks very much indeed for joining us here at the Lausitzring for free practice 2. In less than 5 minutes time, the DTM drivers and cars will be on the track, hopefully, for what's going to be 45 minutes of free practice. The last chance to get set up for tomorrow's qualifying session and the first race of the weekend. However, the observant amongst you will look at that picture and go, hang on a minute, is this the same month, the same year as what we saw 3 hours ago? Because it was quite a nice sunny day. And now the rain has arrived. So just started to rain here at the circuit around about 10 minutes ago. It's just under 3.5 kilometres around, runs in an anti-clockwise direction. There are 12 corners, lots of slow second and third gear corners, but the high-speed section on the tri-oval banking, which 4 years ago gave us the closest finish in the history of the DTM, with Nico Muller and René Rast going absolutely wheel to wheel as they crossed the finish line just 89 thousandths of a second apart. It was a great race and a great finish, and we've had some spectacular battles here in the past. An Audi 1-2 back then, and you can see that 89 thousandths of a second basically comes to about a metre of length.
Thank you, René. Nice job.
So the circuit here, which was built nearly a quarter of a century ago now, in 2000, there's this huge grandstand to the left, which holds 25,000 spectators when it is full. The venue is absolutely ginormous. The circuit has these high-speed sections on the tri-oval banking when the cars can get up to close to 260 kilometres an hour, which is just under 160 miles an hour. And then this tight, twisty infield section where traction out of the slower corners is absolutely critical. Traction, something they might not have a great deal of, though, in this session after the weather you've just seen. A reminder then of the championship standings. Luca Engstler and Jack Aitken both won a race apiece at Oschersleben 4 weeks ago, and Luca, with 30 points, is the championship leader after 1 weekend of racing. 29 points apiece for Jack Aitken and Lucas Stoltz. Luca didn't get a win, which is why he's behind Jack Aitken in the standings, even though they are tied on points. But for others, it's time and a chance to try and make up ground, including for Thomas Preining, the defending champion, who found himself with just one top 10 finish at Oschersleben a few weeks ago. A very disappointing weekend for the defending champion. We talked in free practice 1 about the struggles that the team has had with a change to the ride height rules on the car. They clearly overcame, hopefully from their point of view, a lot of that in free practice 1, because Thomas Preining was quickest, but on a much different track. It was dry, it was 23 degrees. It was all looking lovely. Since we came off air for free practice 1, it's been kind of hovering in the air. The clouds have been building. It's looked like it's going to rain. It hasn't rained at all until literally 10 minutes ago. And now it is absolutely throwing it down. But it might be worth the drivers and teams getting out there at some point. At least it's properly wet, so you can try these new compound Pirelli wet tyres out for the first time in anger. That's one bonus point. The other is that there might be showers later in the weekend as well, including tomorrow afternoon. And it's tomorrow afternoon when we're actually going to have the first race of the weekend. In fact, qualifying and the race both running later than normal. This is due to TV schedule change due to the World semi-finals in the World Ice Hockey Championship. So rather than qualifying at around about 10 o'clock in the morning and racing at 1:30 tomorrow, we have got the qualifying session coming up much later than normal. That's going to be at 1:30 when you'd normally get the race, and then 5 o'clock in the afternoon, 3.5 hours later than usual, is when we'll have the race. And it's in the afternoon where there is more chance of rain tomorrow, so might be worth getting out there. They can't yet because the start has been delayed, and as you can see from one of our onboard cameras, that's kind of the view for Sheldon van der Linde, who's not even got the helmet on ready to go out yet. So the start of the session officially delayed for now. It's pretty heavy downpour. It was sort of drizzling with rain for about 5-6 minutes, and then it's properly started to throw it down literally a couple of minutes before we came on air. My name's Chris Hartley, and up here in the commentary box, which is now quite a gloomy commentary box overlooking the start-finish straight and down on the garages, it's good afternoon to Brian Oliver.
Good afternoon, Chris. What a difference 2.5 hours make. Well, at the end of FP1, I was sat here with my sunglasses on and my shades ready to go, and it was hot, it was sunny, it was glorious, and now monsoon conditions. I was on the upper levels of the grandstand, which is proper high up, and there was fork lightning to the left, fork lightning to the right, and it looked like we had escaped it. It was going either side of us, but then a storm has now come in. Hopefully this is going to clear reasonably quickly and we can get this free practice session underway. But as you said already, this might be very valuable indeed, because if we do get a wet situation occurring during the racing over the weekend, there could be data gathered here which would be very valuable indeed.
Yeah, on one hand you think, well, is it worth the risk? Do we want to go out and risk damaging the car ahead of what's going to be a pretty busy day tomorrow? On the other hand, if you go out tomorrow in a qualifying session or a race and it starts to do this and you've got no idea what the track conditions are like, no idea how the tyres will behave, then of course you're going to be in a bad position. So I think the best thing that could have happened is that it has started to rain properly. If it just been drizzly and damp, that might be neither here nor there with slicks or wets. That would have been a different story. But hopefully they will go out. Some brand spanking new Pirellis there ready to go. And this is a first, isn't it? Because Pirelli have bought this new compound of wet tyre in for this year. But Brian, it's only here in the DTM that we get to see these tyres in action this season.
Yeah, we're very privileged actually, because it is, just as you say, in the DTM, also in GT Masters, that it's not going to be used in other GT3 series. A lot of optimism about this tyre. Apparently it's faster, it's longer lasting, and it's quicker to get up to temperature. Clemens Schmid was testing at the Red Bull Ring a few weeks ago. He says the car drives more harmoniously. But having said that, the McLaren apparently is very easy to drive, easy for me to say, easy to drive in the rain. Comparatively, he says it's a great car in the rain as well, so maybe that had skewed his findings. But a lot of optimism about these tyres, so all eyes on DTM this year to see how we get on with them. Today and this weekend could be the first opportunity we get to use them in anger.
Yeah, exactly right. So, and a circuit where, as I say, with these slow corners that you have in the middle of that, there are a lot of second gear, third gear corners here where you're coming out of them at sort of 90 kilometres an hour or so. You need good traction in the dry. In the wet, you can double that. It's all about your exit speed from the corners. On board there with one of our race winners from Oschersleben, Jack Aitken, who's been busy scoring multiple podiums in the IMSA Sports Car Championship in between racing in DTM. And he got his maiden pole position and maiden race victory at this venue last year on a very hot August day. He was the winner on the Saturday. He won on the Saturday at Oschersleben, but got tangled up in an incident right at the start of race 2 on Sunday, and then had to try and control a car which had got a puncture, and by the time they got halfway around the lap, the car let go, contact with other cars, and out of the race he went. So, but the positive of that, if there was one, was that nobody really had 2 good days. And that was why we've got the top of the championship table, where you've got one different race winner apiece, but he's actually only a point adrift, even though he scored all his points on one day. And the same was true of Mirko Bortolotti, who had a good Saturday. It looked like he was going to get a good Sunday, right up until the point where the driver went into his pit stop, and the team had a pit stop issue and dropped a lot of time. There's Luca Engstler just asking for a wing mirror adjustment to try and make things absolutely spot on.
We all need someone to do that, don't we?
Yeah, up a bit, down a bit. Probably ended up back where he started in the first place.
Yes.
But I had a nice chat with Luca during the break, and obviously congratulated him on his win at Oschersleben. I said, did you have a late night then? Was it a big celebration? He said, no, not really. He said, if it had been the last race of the season, I would have. But for me, this is, it's one job done. There's a long way to go. He said, I'm still learning the car. I'm still learning. It's only my 3rd time around this circuit in a GT3 car at all. I've still got lots to improve. I'm still going through all the data. For me, it's doubly difficult, he said, because a lot of the other drivers, as we discussed in Free Practice 1, are out racing these types of cars, these exact same types of cars, in different championships like GT World Challenge Europe. He said, for me, it's just DTM. Plus the fact I'm also getting reduced testing this year, because there's a testing ban. You only get 5 days of testing per year. He said, so it was great. I still get goosebumps thinking about it now, but I'm not getting carried away with it because I've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, knowing what I know about Luca Engstler, he would have been out at the office in the factory 8 o'clock the next morning, getting ready for either his next race or the next race for his team. He knows nothing other than hard work, a real star in terms of knuckling down and getting on with the work. Sheldon van der Linde just giving a few waves to his many fans, and there are many of them, as he peers out. That's the depressing sight as he looks at the water flowing down at the pit lane at the moment. And there is our defending champion, Thomas Preining, in the number 91, not the number 1. He's chosen 91 for this year and sees it as it's a fresh start. He was the champion last year, not this year, and looking to improve from what was a difficult start to the season in Oschersleben.
I caught up with Thomas Voigt, who looks after all of the media for the AB Sportsline team earlier as well, and he was saying the team were happy and also a little bit relieved that they'd found, they thought they'd found the problem with Kelvin van der Linde's car from Oschersleben. It was a crack in one of the weld seams at the front of the car, so they resolved that. But they were still hoping that was definitely the problem, and they didn't really know until they went and did free practice 1. But all the reports back were positive from Kelvin. The car obviously was very rapid in the session. He finished 3rd quickest. He was top of the times until the last couple of minutes of that first free practice session. So all was well there. And that's some bad luck with Ricardo Feller as well, didn't they? Because his car stopped, ground to a halt coming out of the final corner. I mean, he made it over the line, but he lost 5 places, dropped down to the tail end of the top 10 as a result of that. And that was apparently just a €30 electronic component that failed. I said, annoying that, wasn't it? And Thomas said, it was, but actually, if it happened the lap before, we would have had a DNF. We wouldn't have got anything out of it, so it could have been worse. And he said, those are the days that count in the championship, where you have a bad day, something goes wrong, but you still get some points out of it.
It's crazy, isn't it? You have these €1 million budgets that these teams have to operate with, and a €30 censor letting you down at that crucial moment. But as you say, he did get something out of it, but he was incredibly frustrated by that. I was going to say a dark horse for the championship, but it's probably not so dark actually. Is that Kelvin van der Linde?
Some little dance, it's not a rain dance, surely. It's already raining, Kelvin.
That's very impressive. We'll get him on Strictly Come Dancing next. Being filmed by your own camera. That's damning evidence if ever there was any.
Busy few weeks for Kelvin, because like a lot of the others, he's racing in multiple series, but Kelvin's doing, I think, more than anybody else. So he was racing in the Formula E weekend at Berlin recently. Of course, he's racing in DTM. He's also racing in the World Endurance Championship in a Lexus in the GT3 category as well. He's got his first ever Le Mans 24-hour race coming up next month as well. So a busy schedule for Kelvin van der Linde, but hopefully one that's going to be very rewarding. We saw his brother Sheldon van der Linde sat in the cockpit of his car, because he'll be taking part at Le Mans and the World Endurance Championship, as he already is doing as teammate to René Rast, driving one of the hypercars for BMW. There is Thomas, in fact, just walking through the left-hand side of the picture. Not much for him to write about at the moment in the press release, because for now, if you've just joined us, just to say, the rain started to fall heavily just before we came on air, around about 10 minutes before the session was due to start. The session was due to start at 3:45. It's 3:53 in the afternoon now, so 8 minutes behind schedule. And it's not that nobody's going out because they can't be bothered, it's that the start has been delayed by the officials. But the rain, looking at the window, looks like it's eased a little bit to me.
What does Prost mean? Prost Sheldon van der Linde. I thought he was getting a parking ticket. That was what the note said. It held up on the window.
What was that? Prost?
It said Prost.
Oh, cheers, that means.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
OK. Well, that's not what Prost means. I never knew that. You were talking about Formula E just now. Thomas Preining was another one who took part in the rookie test for Formula E last week with Dennis Hauger, I think it was, in team with him. So Dennis Hauger, of course, came through ADAC Formula 4 and has gone on to Formula 3 and Formula 2. But yes, so Thomas Preining, another who just doing a rookie test in Formula E. A lot of drivers just having a little look there as well.
Is he visualising the lap, or is he having a nap?
He's like me. He's in the corner with his eyes closed. That's what I'm doing at the moment.
And a little sleep while he can. This is how different the conditions were 3 hours ago. So this is the onboard lap from Thomas Preining that put him to the top of the times fairly late on in that first free practice session. So you're right on board with him now. In dry conditions, you are about 255 kilometres an hour, fifth gear down to second gear through turn 2 and turn 3. Rattle over the curbs there through as you turn off the tri-oval through this infield section. Snatch fourth gear, and then you're about to make your way through the left-hander at turn 5, back out onto the tri-oval banking, and this oval circus it was. Then a little run here before you hit the brakes from about 195 kilometres an hour. You go down from fourth down to second gear, about 100 kilometres an hour. It's fairly flat, the circuit here, not too much in the way of undulation. There's a little bit here through turn 3, which is 130 kilometres an hour. Sorry, turn 7, and third gear through there you go. Accelerating up to fourth gear at about 225 kilometres an hour. Stay on the right, drag it across to the left. Second gear, about 85 kilometres an hour through turn 8. Rattle over the curbs. Flat out through this next turn at turn 9. Over the curbs again, third gear. You get to about 195 kilometres an hour. Tight 2 corners now, right then and left, both taken at about 85, 90 kilometres an hour as you go through turns 10, then the left-hander at 11, then turn 12, flat out as you wind things up now, come out onto the tri-oval banking, clip the inside curb. You're already doing 170 kilometres an hour before you even get onto the straight bit. Over the line you go, and completing a lap at a top speed of about 255 kilometres an hour. So that was what he's visualising, but of course you've got to try and visualise a very different circuit now and how it will react in wet conditions. The rain looks like it's eased. They've got their sweepers out there, but you can see there's a lot of surface water. Even the sweeper is delivering quite a lot of spray. But there's the news coming through that the session will start at 3:58, which, good news, is less than 2 minutes away now. So I hope the sweeper gets off the road pretty quickly, because they're all going to be released in 2 minutes' time.
Be a bit embarrassing, come around the corner and see that. Yes, I'm looking at the puddles just down from our commentary position, and they are no longer showing signs of rain, although clearly the man with the umbrella thinks otherwise.
There's a smart man. Not like the idiot who came from England to the commentary box and forgot his coat.
I wouldn't want that up with the lightning that was around just now, but yeah, it's smart enough. So the track sweepers are currently out on turns 5 and 6 and around there, just clearing the water. So great job from our very hard-working marshals, and big shout out to the marshals who are here as volunteers. Come rain, wind, snow, whatever is thrown at them, they are there preparing the track and making sure that we can go racing safely.
Absolutely right. So a bit more activity now. Drivers getting strapped onto cars, and already into the car with the helmet on now, and he's done that pretty quickly. It's Kelvin van der Linde, who got a very well-deserved podium here last year. It was been his first podium for nearly 2 years, so it was a great weekend for him to finally get that podium. Somebody signalling.
This is the highlights.
This is the highlights of killing time for 10 minutes that we've had. Blowing kisses to the camera, doing all sorts of dances, and Thomas Pryning just completely chilling out.
It's been an action-packed 10 minutes, and there is one of the aforementioned. He's clearing the stinging nettles by the looks of things. That's a job that I really wouldn't want to do. Yes, the hard-working crew, and 10 minutes of highlights there. And finally, we should hopefully have some cars to look at before too long.
It's a glamorous job, isn't it, being a... I think he's got nettle soup on the menu.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. Maybe some wine.
No, I think he's trying to clear the way, so it's not quite as painful when they have to go through the gap later on. Reporting back to base. Yeah. It's all clear now.
Nettle's clear. Yeah. Nettle patrol succeeded. Oh, we've got cars in the pit lane. Heaven forbid.
Yeah, Sheldon van der Linde is going to be first out, followed by his teammates René Rast, and then Marco Wittmann up next. Thomas Pryning is high up the order as well, keen to get out there. I'll tell you one driver who might not mind these conditions at all is Maximilian Powell, because it was much wetter conditions than the Nürburgring last year, where he got a race victory for the Grasser Racing team. Back here for his first full season in DTM, but with the family-run team, Powell Motorsport. Dad runs the team, but Max is also heavily involved and walking around the pit lane earlier on in between sessions. Lots of the drivers disappear off to go and have a break or look through data, but Max is still in the garage, still looking at data, still helping with the team and helping to work on the car. So he's not got much downtime, but he'll love these conditions, and it's their home race as well, because they're based in Dresden, which is only about 40 kilometres away. Just for geography, we are to the east of the country, around about 160 kilometres from Berlin. Dresden is the nearest city, the beautiful Dresden city rather, and the circuit itself is pretty close to the border with Poland and also the border with the Czech Republic. And some great onboard shots on board the Schubert Motorsport BMW of Sheldon van der Linde, who had a pretty good weekend, didn't he, at Oschersleben? He was quite pleased with it. He didn't get on the podium, but he was quite pleased with his performance in race one and picked up good points in both races. Yeah,
he looked good in both of them. The BMW looked mighty there. Didn't look as quick here today, but in FP1, who knows who was hiding what. I think Pirelli will be very happy about this rain, because it does give them a chance to finally test the Cincerato, which is the name of the tyre, in anger with a number of different drivers and brands of cars. So it's a great opportunity to get that testing. You can see how much water there is just on the camera there. It is tricky as anything. I'm just looking at the rooster tails being propelled up into the air as these cars circulate, especially along the tri-oval. And I think traction is very much at a premium. Now look at this, sort of looking down the pit straight, headlights blazing through the murk and the gloom, out to complete a lap, just tiptoeing into turn 1. And that is Christian Engelhardt, who had a 16th and an 8th. There's a bit of a wobble on there.
A wobble. There was a lake on the inside of the inside of the curb there. There's a lot of standing water there, and he went straight through the middle of it.
Well, he's done this a few times in the rain as well, hasn't he? But he was fairly quiet at Oschersleben by his standards. Still probably just getting to. Oh, there's a replay of the passing through the lake, and well, it makes great photos, but it's probably not so quick getting around the circuit.
Yeah, it just hucks a wheel just over the curb, like, and just beyond the curb. That's where there's puddle. A lot of, let's say puddle. It's, yes.
That's like the potholes down my street, that is.
That lovely gold livery on the car of Christian Engelhardt, that TDI sponsorship.
He's having fun here, isn't he? Drifting the car.
I wouldn't show you. I'm not sure he's having fun.
Yeah, but
it looks great, but you want to be going forwards, not sideways.
Yeah, and of course, 1 foot wrong here in this free practice session, and you could put yourself on the back foot for the whole weekend. So the driver's really having to drive with the fingertips, as it were, and just be very careful.
It's good info, this, though, isn't it, as a driver? So if you get these sorts of weather conditions later on, you know, OK, don't go over the curb here, because there's a lot, that's where the water forms. And a lot of the time in the wet, the racing line in the wet is different to the racing line in the dry, and a lot of the reason for that is because the dry conditions, the rubber that comes off the slick tyres, as we've had it off there for Nicky Tim, the rubber that comes off the tyres makes almost a black line of a clear film of rubber on the racing line in the dry, and when it gets wet that rubber gets slippery, and actually you want to be off that and finding sometimes more grip around the outside. There's also the fact that depending on the camber of the corner, the rain can run towards the inside of the corner where the racing line normally is. And actually, even though it's a slightly longer route around, you get more grip if you stay on the outside. So I'll be trying different lines and find out exactly what happened. Nicky just got it wrong under braking and just understeered straight on. There's a bit of runoff there, so there's no harm done. If you watch free practice 2, you'll have seen Nicky coming out of one of the turns, getting a bit too close to the wall and taking out one of our fixed cameras. Don't worry, it was a fixed camera. We haven't got a camera operator hanging on the wall down there. That would be a bit sketchy. And I went and had a look at the car, and there's a big old graze down the front right of Nicky Tim's Lamborghini and down the back right corner as well. So he properly, you know, went sideways into the wall. Car's okay, I think, but it's not quite as pretty as it once was.
Yes, I spoke to our producer who brings us our excellent pictures, and he says there is an invoice going to one Mr. M. Tim, care of SSR Performance. So yes, I think I have to put a fresh one out there on turn 5. But yes, well, exploring the limits of the track, that's what FP's all about, really, isn't it?
You're a braver man than me to deliver an invoice to Nicky Tim. He's going well now, though. Absolute best in the first sector, a personal best in the second sector. At the moment, the best lap time set by Anjan Guan, the Turkish driver, the Porsche driver, with a 1:37.036. You can see if you just go ever so slightly wide onto those white lines, though, they get slippery as well. So Nicky just making his way out of turn 12 now, back onto the tri-oval banking. It's not that banked, it's only around about 4 degrees, and I've come over the line, and surely he's going to go quickest with this lap. No, he doesn't. He loses too much time in the last sector, so he loses 9/10 in the end. It was a good lap until he just got it a little bit too wide going through those last couple of turns as we get team radio.
There's no point where I need to make it down, so I cannot see anything.
Yeah, copy, no worries. There's quite a gap in rear. Give the rear 3 seconds. This you can do, or you can even drop behind Chan.
So that's Thomas Priding saying, can't see where I'm going, I'm kind of stuck in the traffic here. So race engineer trying to let him know where the gaps are so he can get less spray. It's the spray that's as much of an issue. The plumes that come off the back of the cars. You can see Thomas just correcting the wheel there as it fights for grip, delivering around about 580 brake horsepower through the rear wheels on a very slippery circuit. Preining second quickest as it stands. He was quickest in the dry, he's second quickest in the wet. Very downbeat start to the season at Oschersleben, but he's looked good here so far. Quickest is still his teammate, Ayenjan Nguyen, with 1:37.036. We're in the high 1 minute 20s earlier on, so you're like 17 seconds per lap slower than you were in the dry conditions. Preining is second. It's a Porsche 1-2. Then you got Ricardo Feller with a 1:37.483 in third place. Lucas Auer's just done a personal best middle sector. He is going towards the end of his lap in the Mercedes. 3 times a winner here. And the Austrian, 1:37.703 so far, but he's threatening to go a little bit quicker than that as we get some great onboard shots now with Thomas Preining. One looking forwards, one looking rearwards at the Abt Sportsline Audi of Kelvin van der Linde, and one looking at the drive. And you can see all the different lines here. The Audi's to the right, then it's to the left, and it's about to overtake him, isn't it? Through he comes.
God, zero visibility. I think Manthey MA know how to set a car up in the wet. Of course, they are superstars, especially at the Nürburgring 24-hour race, which is imminently on the horizon, and it always seems to rain or do something unusual during that race. Thomas Preining has been getting ready for the 24 hours of Spa at the end of June as well, and he is teaming up with Timo Bernhard, racing for the Team 75 team. That's, of course, a name that we are very familiar if you know anything about Porsche racing, and, of course, Timo had a team in DTM last year. As Lucas Auer does a little bit of grass track racing, he's discovered where the adhesion runs out, and it's somewhere about there, I'd say.
Yeah, and it's getting wetter again, isn't it? Which is why, I think. And, yeah, this was just losing the back end a bit, then overcorrected, and then very easy to run wide and onto the grass. I can see Thomas Preining down below the commentary boxes come into the pit lane, and Kelvin van der Linde likewise has come in. No, Ricardo Feller it is that's come into the pit lane as well. And that's a replay of Thomas just thudding the inside curb there through turn 1. We've got a red flag, so the session is being stopped. I'm not sure anyone's gone off. I think it's just because it's getting too wet out there.
Yeah, I don't think anybody, I can't see anybody who's off. I think it is just a hazard to everybody. And it looks like we're going to get, yes it is, Thierry Vermeulen, who's out on the exit of turn 7 in the Emil Frey Racing Ferrari. So, well, he's discovered where the traction runs out. Binoculars out, that's good.
Yeah, he's right at the edge of the farthest point of the gravel trap, but he's facing the wrong way, so the track's behind him, if you like, and he's facing towards the commentary box, so he's kind of at a 90-degree angle to the circuit.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer to stop that. You'd have to do that for safety reasons anyway, but you get the feeling, just listening to the team radio, that a lot of the drivers were maybe thinking about bailing on this anyway, because they're not really gaining that much at the moment out there with the rain having increased, and I'm looking, I can see the rain is chucking down at the moment, so it's a pause, and we wait to see what's going to happen next.
Yeah, indeed. The clock had got to 36 minutes and a second to go, and yeah, just lost the back end coming out of turn 7. Back end switched around on him, and that was, yeah, he almost actually carried that car all the way through the gravel trap, in which case he might have been able to get going again. Yeah. Although that grass is probably starting to get a bit soggy now as well, but the gravel trap did its job. He didn't make any contact with the barrier or anything, so should be fine. But he's beached and stuck there now. You can see the rear tyres are semi-buried, aren't they? So it's going nowhere without the help of a recovery team.
Well, so the gravel trap's doing what they are meant to do, and that is stop the car, and it's done exactly that. So good job there. Kept him out the barrier, so it doesn't look like there's too much damage. Here comes the cherry picker, which will pick him up and scoop him out, and then in the garage it'll be an afternoon of work just getting all the gravel out from underneath the car. So out he comes, just we're commentating on Cherry. Yeah. Here he comes around the outside of turn 7. Yes, getting ready to pick that Ferrari up and get him out of the way. So the question is, I'm just wondering whether they will restart this session when he's out of the way or not. Everybody has returned to the pit lane now, or most cars have returned to pit lane now. There's a few stragglers coming in. But yes, do you reckon there was any meaningful data gathered in what has been 10 minutes of very soggy running?
Well, yes, if it rains at any point tomorrow or on Sunday, it's definitely, I mean, tomorrow looks the more likely. His forecast I saw said the chance of thunderstorms, 50% chance of some thunder and rain tomorrow afternoon, and a 50% chance of a shower or two on Sunday afternoon. So it's going to happen. Tomorrow looks the most likely candidate. Remember, a later start than normal, 5 o'clock race start rather than 1:30. And qualifying's not till 1:30. You always think on free practice too, the teams are just watching this thinking, please don't throw the car off the road. I don't want a late night repairing this car tonight. Got enough to do as it is. But at least they've got longer than normal. They've got 3.5 hour later start than normal tomorrow for qualifying. Christian Engelhardt up on the jacks. Luca Engstler, race winner, just behind. Some great emotional scenes when he got the victory at Oschersleben, his maiden victory at the start of only his second season in DTM. And Dad Franz Engstler, also a race winner and front runner in the DTM back in the day, was there with a tear or two in his eye as well. Grasser Racing team there with those two fantastic looking Lamborghinis.
Looks spectacular, don't they? I think the Luca Engstler paint scheme is especially spectacular. You mentioned the teams might have a decent gap between now and quali. Of course, with things moved around, it's the opposite if they have a moment during quali on Saturday, because of course the race is not due to finish until 6 o'clock tomorrow evening, and then we've got quali for race 2 at 9:40 local time on Sunday. So anybody who stacks it on the Saturday, the team are not going to be thanking them, because it's going to be a bit of an all-nighter, but hopefully they can keep it out of the wall and there won't be any issues. But certainly a bit of a topsy-turvy timetable, and we've got a topsy-turvy one for Zandvoort as well, so just to keep you on your toes.
Yeah, it's a later start on Sunday, because I think it's half a dozen drivers are taking part in the test for Le Mans, which is at the same weekend. So the way it's going to work at Zandvoort is qualifying 2 will happen first, but on Friday for Sunday's race. And then the race on Sunday will be literally the last race of the day. It'll be, I think it's a 4:30 start, isn't it, at Zandvoort. So just good practice for anybody doing Le Mans, getting used to racing late into the night.
It's a hell of a commitment, isn't it? Doing DTM at Zandvoort and doing Le Mans practice as well.
Yeah. And
these drivers,
planes. That's how they get back and forth.
Planes?
Apparently, yes. I asked if is it helicopter? Is that how they get back and forth? And no, planes. They get
not a fast car then.
No, not a fast car. No, well, that'd probably be quicker in some of the cases. But yeah, they get private jets from A to B and back to A again.
But these drivers who have such busy diaries, you think, oh, they're only doing 8 DTM events a year, but so many of them are in so many other things. And we mentioned it in FP1. I was at the World Endurance Championships in Imola about a month ago, and the car pulls up alongside me in the car park, and that gets Rene Rast and Sheldon van der Linde and Kelvin van der Linde, and they're like, oh yeah, what are you doing here? Because they're racing in all of these different categories as well. So busy drivers, they don't just sit around in between, some of them racing most weekends, and yeah, DTM just forming part of that busy diary.
The most important part, of course, there, Brian, DTM.
Oh, well, absolutely.
Most important thing that they do this year.
Yeah.
Right, they got the
good save.
Tow hooks lined up, ready to go. It shouldn't take too long to get him out of there, but they've got to make sure that they do it properly, because it's quite a bit of an expensive bit of kit they're about to try and retrieve out of the gravel trap. But the marshal's well versed. Telehandler has arrived. He found a good line around that outside, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he had the back end hanging out.
No spray off the tyres there whatsoever. He found loads of grip. And then straight away,
look at that.
Slick as you like.
I was trying to see if the splitter was damaged or not. It looks like it's all in one piece to me. From my
kind of went in backwards, didn't it?
Uneducated eye. Yes, absolutely. There's the nice view of the Verstappen.com racing. So all the Max Verstappen fans who are cheering on Thierry Vermeulen. Of course, we mentioned it already. Raymond Vermeulen, his father, is the manager of Max Verstappen, and Thierry receiving a lot of coaching from Max as well. Max rates Thierry very highly, doesn't he?
He does, yeah. And as we said in free practice 1, Max is still tries to help him out where he can, and looks at his data and tries to help him out. He's done some activities with him as well, gets the car fired up on his own, and he said that whenever we do anything together, he's always within 0.2 of a second of me. He's talented, but he's got, he's giving everybody else a big advantage, because he's racing against guys that I used to race against a long time ago before I came into Formula One. He did a lot of racing before he got to Formula One, just the one season in the Formula 3 Euro Series. But guys he was karting against, guys he raced against on his way up, he said he's racing against them. They've got years of experience, and he is, he only started racing in 2020, 4 years ago.
Oh, I feel so old.
Yeah, he's going to drive. And a big weekend, of course, coming up for Thierry Vermeulen. In 2 weeks' time, when we go to Zandvoort, his home race. He'll be desperate to do well there.
Oh, that's going to be a noisy affair, isn't it? It's the Dutch fans who know how to party at the best of times. And, yeah, I think there's quite a large contingent of them that are likely to be there. We've also got Porsche 6 Carrera Cup Germany on the bill and Benelux as well on that weekend. And there's a lot of very quick Dutch drivers there. What is it about the Netherlands and the drivers? They seem to produce drivers that know nothing other than very rapid. And Thierry Vermeulen is one of them. And we look forward to the party that's likely to break out. And if he finishes anywhere near the front in either of the DTM races, I should think will be a meltdown in the Netherlands.
Well, he's back on track. He's making his way back towards the pit lane. They did stop the clock, incidentally, so the clock doesn't keep going. So it stopped with just over 36 minutes left to go. Just making his way through turn 9 at the moment is Thierry Vermeulen. And there is a well-prepared Marshall. He knew it was going to rain, look, so he's brought the waterproofs already.
It's Papa Smurf ready for this to restart. And what did I say about dedicated marshals who volunteer their time? It takes, you've got to be keen to stand out. We're all right. We're in the dry in our little commentary books, but they're stood out there waiting for this to restart. And right, what's happening on the screens? I just saw the clock starting to move, but no, it hasn't actually started.
No official notice as yet.
Yeah, so hopefully we're going to get this underway soon. We'll get a bit more wet running in, a bit of data gathered. It is still raining. I can still see the rain coming down. I can see Thierry Vermeulen's car in the pit lane with the Emil Frey Racing team just checking it out. So he will no doubt want to get back into this session. Right, the confirmed session will restart at 16:20 local, so that's about 3¼ minutes, according to my maths.
Not too far away.
Yes.
Ayhan Nguyen is quickest. Thomas Preining, his Manthey teammate, is second quickest. There's 0.3 of a second between them. And Ayhan Nguyen in his second season of DTM. He was part of Timo Bernhard's squad in the Porsche last year, actually driving the car that Thomas Preining had driven the year before. Now they've come together in the same team, the Manthey EMA team, which is hugely successful. And as I mentioned earlier, run by a driver that was a star himself in the DTM back in the day. Driving in Rovers was Olaf Manthey, second in the DTM in 1984 and 1985. They're based in Neuspach, which is just outside the Nürburgring, but it's a coalition this year between Manthey and EMA squad based in Melbourne, Australia. As we see, Lucas Auer having a moment. These are a collection of moments now. This was, we saw this one, didn't we? Nicky Tim just understeering off the road. This was the Thierry Vermeulen one. Probably was a good job he went backwards into the water. This was one of the moments for Christian Engelhardt,
one of many.
World Drift Racing champion, as he made his way around the corner. You see some of the bumps on the circuit here that they have to be super careful of as well. And this was Lucas Auer. If he wins this weekend, will match Gary Paffett's record for the most number of wins around the Lausitzring. Gary's won 4 times here, the 2-time DTM champion. Lucas has won 3 times here. His first win came in 2016. It was his first actual podium in the DTM. He got straight to the top step of the podium. He's got a great record here. Actually, Gary Paffett almost won the race the year before he got his first win at the Lausitzring. In 2004, he crossed the line first, but the car ran out of fuel. And he got disqualified on 2 counts. One that was that he left the car before it got back to the pits. You're not supposed to do that. And the other was that the car didn't have enough fuel in for the fuel sample after the race. So he got kicked out. Matthias Ekstrom got the race victory. But Gary came back the following year and did get his first official victory at the Lausitzring.
We've seen some great racing here over the years. I commentated on GT Masters here a couple of years ago, and that was in conditions similar to this, and the racing was spectacular. Of course, it was here that René Rast had his massive accident, that big roller that he had. What year was that? That must have been 2 or 3 years ago now. But always spectacular racing here at the Lausitzring. It's a circuit like no other. You can see from that graphic, that picture, that the rain is still coming down. So there's no easing off of it at the moment. I think it's going to be wet for the next 36 minutes. Certainly going to be a wet track, and you can see how hard it's raining there. Drivers, well, they're keen to get out. Most drivers seem to be in their cars and ready to go. So not sitting this one out and taking it easy, gathering the data. Let's hope that we can keep it at the gravel tracks and keep this thing going. We are about 15 seconds away from this session restarting.
Yeah, and it'll be 36 minutes and 1 second left on the clock when we do get going again. It was a very wet, even wetter than this first DTM event 24 years ago at this circuit, just after it was open. The year was 2000. Bert Schneider qualified on pole position, the great Bert Schneider, who was ultimately in the end a race winner here, but not until a couple of years later. He won 3 times around here in the end, but he got pole position, but the race never happened. It was monsoon-like rain, and the race meeting effectively got abandoned, so they came back the year after, and Peter Dumbreck got a victory for Mercedes. So he was the first DTM winner around here. Bert Schneider then won in 2002, 2003, and went on to win again in 2006.
You're a walking encyclopedia, you know that.
Boring, isn't it?
Not even remotely. I want him on my team during the pub quiz.
On board with, that's a great shot this, isn't it, with Sheldon van der Linde looking over the shoulder of the car, if you like. There's Arjun Maini, had a really good weekend last time out at Oschersleben. 2 strong race results, which have left him up there, I think 7th in the championship. Yes, he is, with an 8th and a 4th. The 8th he would have been disappointed with because he qualified 3rd for race 1 at Oschersleben, but he lost quite a few places on the first lap of the race. But a very strong Sunday, 4th place. And Arjun, the Indian driver, with a good session this morning as well, 6th fastest. He's always gone well around Oschersleben ever since he first came into the championship. He's been a podium finisher in the DTM as well. His first podium coming at the end of that 2021 season at the Norris Ring. Ooh, breathe in.
Careful, chaps.
That's Kelvin van der Linde just having a nibble at the inside of René Rast. And get out, come on, get out of the way, he says.
Not the first time those two have rubbed panels, is it?
BMWs are quite hard to get past, though, aren't they? Especially with the Audi. Absolutely dwarfs it, doesn't it? So they're about to come over the start-finish line. Got Sheldon van der Linde just ahead of them on the road, and here they come underneath the commentary box, nose to tail. Just ahead of them there is Arjun Maini. There's Sheldon van der Linde coming into turn 1. To work out how much curb you can take around here as well without unsettling the car too much. And there is the puddle that we've seen earlier. René Rast going through it and giving a face full of spray to Kelvin van der Linde. Maximilian Powell finds it as well in the number 71 Lamborghini.
Wonderful. Through the middle of Lake Lausitz, as we will call it now, which is on turn 1. That's a bit of a downhill section as well. It's a really tricky corner in the dry, in the wet. I think it's a proper hazard, particularly with a lake in the middle of it as well. Anh Cheng-gun, the quickest man so far, 1:37.036. I would like to say I know what a competitive wet time is around here, but I haven't actually got a clue. But a 37.036 is the quickest in this session. So Manthey EMA 1 and 2, they were quick in FP1, they're looking quick in FP2. So despite their concerns, if we put it that way, about the BOP and the way they haven't set the car up, they appear to be getting on top of it. It looks like they've got a good handle. Let's just see if they can keep it on the grey stuff for the remaining 33 minutes.
Yeah, in the green Porsche, Anh Cheng-gun going through. He's a real star in his home country in Turkey. He's one of these drivers who seems to have been around forever, but he's still only 26 years old. Got a great record in Porsches. He was the Porsche Carrera Cup France champion 2 years running in 2018 and 2019. Finished 3rd in the Porsche Super Cup in 2019, 2020 and 2021 as well. And made his DTM debut in 2022, just on a one-off weekend at the Norris Ring in a Ferrari, the Alfa Tauri AF Corsa Ferrari. He stood in that weekend and actually put it on the front row of the grid, but the race itself was a bit of a nightmare, not just for him. It was one of those races where there was a multiple pile-up into the first hairpin. But his first proper season in DTM was last year with the QC Team Bernhard squad. And he had that big crash as well, didn't he, at the Nürburgring in the wet with Christian Engelhardt coming off the road and then spearing back onto the track and taking out Porsche into turn 1 of Anh Cheng-gun. It just didn't see it coming. He wouldn't have seen that at all. And both of them were out for Sunday then, weren't they?
That was one of the biggest crashes of the year last year, and hopefully we won't see a repeat of that. Yes, Anh Cheng-gun also was a star and a winner in Porsche Carrera Cup Benelux, a series that is spectacular and well worth a watch. So a little plug in there. But yeah, that's another series that's promoting these young drivers, and Anh Changchun coming through that and learning the ropes in a Porsche. There's a man who doesn't need to learn many ropes. So quick last year, potentially a favourite, the favourite coming, if there was such a thing, coming into the championship this year, Mirko Bortolotti. And had it not been for that pit stop at Oschersleben, may well have been looking at a couple of podiums in Oschersleben. He had a second place, eventually he came home for a solitary point in 15th, but was so quick here this time last year, albeit in very different conditions, finding what the limits of adhesion are in the SSR Performance Lamborghini. Great shot there. Look at the concentration in his eyes, not taking his eyes off the road for one moment.
But he also looks so relaxed, doesn't he, behind the wheel of the car? This is his office, this is where he lives and breathes, and fantastic driver with huge experience of GT racing, long since been a Lamborghini factory driver, racing their hypercar this year as well in the World Endurance Championship. This was his best weekend last year. He got a pole, he got a win, he got a second place, biggest points haul of the season for him, and that fantastic race to defend for the entire race, it seemed, from the Audi of Ricardo Fellow, who's literally breathing down his neck in the hottest race of the year. But Bortolotti held on and took every ounce of energy to do it, but he made it to the checkered flag and won, but ultimately just fell short of the championship title, went in, as did Ricardo Fellow, went into the final weekend of the season still with a chance, but it was the perfect Hockenheim for Thomas Preining, who took 2 pole positions, 2 race wins and a maximum score to seal his first championship title. But Mirko second last year, 4th the year before. Will it be 3rd time lucky for the Italian? We can now hear from the driver that beat him to last year's title.
It has 0 grip and it's running like crazy.
He's not a fan of this weather, is he? I don't think Thomas Preining.
Yeah, me neither. But it's a challenge, and it is the toss-up of, do we risk it staying out there, trucking around, picking up data, or do we park it up, save the car for tomorrow? It's risk versus reward. The thing is, this year testing is so limited.
Look at him fighting the wheel.
Testing, it really is. Testing is so limited. They need all the track time they can get, really, don't they? And even in conditions like this,
yeah, good point.
They're finding out stuff about the car and about different conditions. Because, of course, this year there has been the big restriction on testings, and probably that's the first step in a further restriction on testing in 2025. And the teams are allowing, or each driver allowed 5 test days a year. Not able to just go at it and test as much as you like anymore, as he gets it completely wrong into, is that turn 1 or turn 5?
1, yeah.
Yeah, it's turn 1. And he's up on the tri-oval now, imitating an Indy car, up on the banking, and he's going to rejoin. There's the chicane to slow them down, because if you keep your toe on it going around there, you make up a hell of a lot of time when you rejoin on turn 5.
It's going to be a slow lap, this. Right, so anyway, yeah, just, it's so easy though, isn't it, when you're trying to slow a car down from 250 kilometres an hour to, well, he won't quite be doing that in the wet, so, but he's still probably doing 240 odd, and you've got to slow the car down in the wet to about 80, 75 kilometres an hour through this corner, hard on the brakes. It just didn't turn in, did it? You're trying to clip that apex on the inside, and you can see the front wheels just carried on, going straight on, understeered. And there's still a fair bit of standing water there, isn't there? There's a bit of camber to the circuit as well. But luckily, there's also an escape road. Yeah,
I mean, that's the good bit, is you do have that escape road, so you can perhaps be a little bit daring into that corner, knowing that it's not all going to end in tears if you get it wrong. You can see what the visibility is like from the perspective of Jack Aitken. Windscreen wiper going out along the pit straight. It's a long old stretch, this. It's absolutely flat out in towards turn 1. Where's the braking point? I can't see it.
It's like you're trying to drive a car at 240, 250 kilometres an hour, and somebody's got a hose pipe and it's just spraying it in the window. Look at him fighting the wheel. Lightning reactions from Jack Aitken. That's keeping the eyes wide, isn't it? Trying to fight the car and keep it on the road. It's also terrific fun in a way. I mean, you complain about the lack of grip and etc., but there's a lot of drivers that love the challenge of driving in these conditions. It is like trying to control a wild animal around here, and Jack doing a fantastic job. Kelvin van der Linde has just improved up to 9th place. Quickest is still Arjen Nguyen. Thomas Preining's gone into the pit lane now. He's 2nd. Ricardo Feller 3rd. Lucas Auer 4th. Max Powell, thought you might like the wet, he's in 5th place. Marco Wittmann, top BMW, in 6th. Maro Engel's gone into the pits. He's 7th. 8th is Nicky Tim. 9th, Kelvin van der Linde. And Christian Engelhardt rounding out the tops 10. Max Powell has just done a personal best. first sector, 33.6, but the best first sector in these conditions, Nicky Tim from earlier on, a 33.1.
Yeah, that's a brave from Nicky Tim, particularly when you consider what a traumatic time he had at Oschersleben, and he was thoroughly fed up with what was a very rubbish weekend for him, and letting it all hang out here in these conditions. So a brave move indeed. But yes, Max Powell, he wants to impress. He loves this circuit, as you say already. It's just down the road. He's got lots of guests here this weekend as well, so he'd be quite happy, I think, if these conditions remained for the rest of the weekend. Pleased to say I don't think they will, but he wouldn't mind if they were.
Jack backed it off then, let a couple of cars past, and has now pulled the trigger again to have another go. So here he is flying around and about to go over the start-finish line in the number 14 Ferrari. The British driver on the brakes, slows the car down and makes his way into turn 1. Easy to hit the curbs here. This is a replay of, this is going to be Clement Schmidt finding a curb, I think, or the puddle, or both. Okay, so far, the McLaren, which was good, wasn't it, in the first free practice session in the drive. Both of them went well. Ben Durr ending up in 10th place earlier on, with Clement Schmidt in 12th.
Yeah, great job. And the McLaren, as I already mentioned, is supposedly very good in the wet, and it's a very well-balanced car. Looks very smart as well, that orange and black livery. Great to have an additional brand on the grid of the DTM this year, and Clement Schmidt hustling that around. But look at all that water and all the spray, and look at the visibility, or lack of.
Anjan Guwen's 3/10 up on anybody else. That's a big old gap, isn't it? Because the next 0.3 of a second cover the next 4 cars, and normally gaps open up in wet conditions, and quite often in a dry session in the DTM you'll get almost the entire field covered by less than a second. But we've still got only 0.8 of a second covering the top 8 here, and some improvements been coming. Sheldon van der Linde has gone into the pits, but he went up to 13th. That's Lucas Stoltz, 3rd in the championship, just getting it a bit wrong and making his way out onto the grass. That was through turn 4. He's coming out of turn 5 now, got it going again, but obviously that lap ruined.
He'd done a couple of personal bests on the previous lap, a couple of sectors, and was looking good, but then that little bit of off-roading has caught him out clearly. Pushing as hard as he can and kind of rejoining, but it's going to take a lap or so just to get the tyres cleaned up, get the heat in them, and have another go.
Luca, 6th in the championship last year, 6th in the championship the year before, and with a strong start, the HRT squad looking much improved at the start of this season, with Arjun Maini having a good weekend as well at the opening encounter at Oschersleben. Getting out of the way of Maro Engel there, fellow Mercedes driver, which actually sent him wide. He ran out of road, didn't he? Maro said, come on, sunshine, out of the way, that's my line.
His good friend, Maro Engel, who he has shared a driving seat with many a time. I almost came back to visit him again in turn 5, didn't he? So, yes, maybe just a bit distracted and getting off the racing line. Oh, this is a view of him. And his eyes will probably go a whole lot wider when we see him. Oh, and that's Lucas Auer. Yes, the yellow Mamba pointing in the wrong direction.
Yeah, he's had a few moments in this session. He's not the only one. I hasten to add that they've all been having moments, because it is tricky. You try driving one of these things in these conditions. Doing well just to keep it pointed in the right direction, but you just get it slightly wider. That grass is very, very soggy now and has 0 traction. So around it goes fairly harmlessly. But of course, that's another lap ruin. That's McLaren. Looks like it might have had a moment just rejoining as well. Looked a little bit slower than it might have been. Meanwhile, Thierry Vermeulen, who's gone back out after stopping the session earlier on, he's just put himself up to 8th quickest in the Ferrari. 1:37.9. Excellent lap.
Well, he hasn't been spooked by his visit to the gravel trap then, has he? So come out and just go a little bit quicker. That's a great move. His teammate, Jack Aitken, is currently in P4, 137.657, as we see Clement Schmidt once again into the gravel trap. Now, does he keep it going? I think he does, because we haven't got a red flag, so that's good news. Drags a load of gravel out with him onto the surface as if it wasn't tricky enough as it is, and carries on. Doesn't look like he's got any damage from that. Yeah,
we just saw a shot of him going slowly. It looked like he'd had a moment, and that was the moment by the looks of things. So it's Christian Engelhardt about to make his way back out. Race winner at Oschersleben last year as a Porsche driver at the Top Sport team in the opening weekend of 2023. A Lamborghini driver these days, as Lucas Auer is on radio.
I come to the pits. I'm not sure if I actually broke something. I went too wide in turn 7, and I think.
So, yeah, bumpy grass ride might have damaged the car. Coming to check it over. Meanwhile, absolute best second sector for Jack Aitken. He did a personal best first sector. The Ferrari driver, 4th quickest at the moment. He's going through turn 10. You're on board with him now. Just in front of him is the number 3 Abt Sportsline Audi of Kelvin van der Linde, the South African, with a plume of spray coming from the back of his car. On the power then for Jack Aitken. If he's had a good run through that final sector, this could be a big improvement, but the last sector is the longest sector, so all being well and good, he will have nailed it, and he pretty much has. 2nd quickest, so it's an improvement. He's not quite fastest. He's still 0.2 of a second away from Ayan Nguyen, but he's fastest. He's got a bit wide there at the start of the next lap, though. Just slightly overcooks it through the first turn, but a good lap from Jack Aitken to split the 2 Manthey Porsches of Nguyen and Preining with a 137.255.
Jack was saying that the Ferrari, well, we're already aware, has a lot of additional weight that's been added for this event. And I would wonder whether the weight actually might help somewhat in these conditions. I know that some heavier cars do sometimes come into their own when the conditions are wet. So Jack might be another one who wouldn't mind if these conditions remained throughout the weekend.
Certainly less of a disadvantage in the wet than in the dry. And remember as well, the top 3 from the last race have to carry additional success ballast going not into qualifying, but into the next race. We'll breathe in again. Ayan Nguyen having a look at the inside of René Rast. It's proving quite difficult to overtake in these sessions, isn't he, in that blue BMW? Not a 3-time champion for nothing, or a 26-time race winner in the DTM. We've had a good lap then from Thierry Vermeulen. We saw him going into 6th place. So the 2 Ferraris both going really well. A 137.6 versus the 137.2 of his teammate Jack Aitken. So they're 2nd and 6th. Kelvin van der Linde is on a decent lap as well. Personal best first sector. The last sector, the longest of them, is the one you've really got to get right, but he's thereabouts, isn't he? 5th quickest. He was 3rd in the dry, and he's gone to the top of the times with the absolute best final sector. So Kelvin van der Linde in the wet puts the Audi to the top of the times, 136.915. Nguyen down to 2nd, Aitken down to 3rd, Preining down to 4th, fell at 5th, and Vermeulen in 6th.
And I do believe it's actually stopped raining. Looking out the window, the puddles are no longer moving. That's probably backed up by a number of green lights on our timing screen indicating drivers now starting to set personal bests. So the 136.915 set by Kelvin van der Linde might be under threat as the times now start to come tumbling down. Of course, green in the sector, meaning the driver has set a personal best. Purple, meaning that they're quicker than anybody else. The circuit divided into those 3 sectors, and you can see Thierry Vermeulen, personal best in Sector 1 and Sector 2, not in Sector 3, but it's certainly enough to improve his time up to 6th place.
Yeah, lost a lot of time in that last sector, actually, but it was all looking good up until that point. Yeah, definitely, I mean, there's still a lot of spray coming from cars. He's not right behind one, but definitely looks a bit brighter up overhead, doesn't it? So 230 kilometres an hour through the speed trap for Thomas Preining. He did a personal best final sector there. And you're right, more and more green sector times coming up. 2 green sectors for René Rast. He was 6th. He's down to 7th as he gets a big tank slapper on, because just behind him, the number 71 Lamborghini of Max Powell has gone 4th quickest. So tremendous effort from Max. His lap time to put him up into 4th place with a 137.214, and not for the first time today. 2 drivers have exactly matched one another. Earlier on we had Kelvin van der Linde and Thomas Preining with exactly the same lap time in free practice 1. They were tied for the top of the times then, tied for 3rd quickest. Thomas Preining and Max Powell have done exactly the same lap time, 137.214. Thomas set it first, which is why he's still shown as 3rd and Max is 4th. But what about this from Christian Engelhardt? This is looking pretty tasty. Absolute best in the middle sector, a personal best in the first sector. It looks tidy enough, doesn't it, coming through the last few corners. He's about to wind things up coming out through turn 12 and point it now in a straight line. Try to see where he's going, because he'll get closer and closer to the tail of spray that's coming up off the back of the number 14 Ferrari ahead of him. 3rd quickest for Christian Engelhardt then, with a 137.159, and this is Maro Engel about to improve as well. Thomas Preining behind him on the road. Thierry Vermeulen with 2 personal best sectors again, but not quite putting the whole lap together. Maro Engel comes through now and stops the clock, but again, backed off in that final sector. But there is more and more opportunity to improve as that rain relents, and you can see a less wet racing line now where they've mopped up quite a bit of that surface water with those Pirelli tyres.
This is, again, where data collection will be really important on this drying track, finding where the tyres go, how long they last, where the crossover might be. Not that I'm anticipating them on slicks in the next quarter of an hour, of course, but just seeing how the pace changes as the track dries out. So actually good conditions for testing. You can see Jack Aitken's done a personal best in Sector 1, not so much in Sector 2, but clearly some pace, particularly in these conditions in that Ferrari, as we ride on board with him. He's got a nice clear track in front. His teammate Thierry Vermeulen, the quickest of anybody in Sector 2. So the times are starting to tumble.
Thomas Preining's last lap put him back up to 2nd place, also in the 136s now with Kelvin van der Linde. 136.6 for Kelvin, 136.994 for Thomas. Still from earlier on, before the rain got really bad. The fastest first sector belongs to Nicky Tim. Vermeulen is the best second sector, and Kelvin van der Linde has got the absolute best so far in this session in Sector 3. On board with Jack Aitken. Thierry Vermeulen looks like he might be about to string together a nice lap. Jack Aitken goes 2nd place with that one. What about Thierry Vermeulen? He's about to come through as Aijin Nguyen goes absolute best in the middle sector. Thierry Vermeulen goes 3rd quickest in this session. Not bad for somebody who was in the gravel trap half an hour ago. 3rd quickest of the Ferraris. Great setup in the wet for the Emil Frey Racing squad. They're 2nd and 3rd, but their times are going to keep changing now as the track gets better and quicker and more grippy. There's more traction. They get up to top speed quicker. They're braver through the corners. They're going to keep pushing the braking zone. They're going to keep pushing the envelope. Lucas Auer has had a bit of a torrid session so far, but he might be about to go right to the top of the times. Nguyen improves to go back up into 2nd place, and in about 30 seconds time we'll see what Lucas Auer can do as well. He's just through turn 9 at the moment, coming into this tight 2nd gear corner rather, at turn 10 and 11. Winding up there, one of the slowest sequence of corners on the throttle he will get. He was absolute quickest in the first sector, a personal best in the 2nd sector. He's going to way improve upon 14th place, which is where he is now, but how high up the order will he go in the wet conditions? Lucas Auer fires himself over the line, and the time is the fastest time of the day so far, well, of the session so far, with a 1:36.062. That's more than half a second quicker than anybody else.
That's impressive, isn't it? It's interesting that the 2 drivers that have had the biggest offs in this session are now in the top 5. It just goes to show you don't stop pushing, do you? So Lucas Auer, we saw him pointing in the wrong direction, was worried he'd damaged the car. News, you haven't. 1:36.062. Really impressive stuff. Still, the quick laps are coming, and Christian Engelhardt quickest of anybody in Sector 2.
And overall.
Yes, and jumps to the top.
Yeah, lovely lap that. 1:35.955. 10th quicker. It'd be great if this was qualifying, wouldn't it? Every time somebody crosses the line, they go quicker than the driver before. Up to 5th place for Sheldon van der Linde. Oh, again, slightly overcooking it, just about getting the BMW turned in before he reached the grass on the exit to turn 1. On board with Lucas Stoltz is on an out lap. So Christian Engelhardt quickest, 1:35.955. Just a 10th quicker than Lucas Auer with a 1:36.062. Then a 1:36.3 for Thomas Preining in 3rd. Kelvin van der Linde 4th with a 1:36.6. He's only 100th quicker than Maro Engel, who is 5th quickest. Luca Engstler in 6th place with a 1:36.709. I was chatting earlier to Luca Engstler. I said, what is it you're focused on during a free practice session then? Is it getting the quick lap in for qualifying, getting that sorted, or is it setting up the longer runs, or is it a bit of both? As Lucas Auer is about to go to the top of the times by nearly 0.2 of a second. And Luca Engstler said, for me, because I'm still learning, he said, for me, it's all about putting in single lap pace to try and get a good qualifying. He said, if I can get somewhere near the front, then it's just about trying to dig in and dig my heels in and stay roughly where I am in the race. He said for others with more experience, they can try these different setups and they can work on things because they've got a base setup to go to. For me, I'm still learning. I've still got relatively little experience compared to them in these GT3 cars. So it's just all about being somewhere in the mix in qualifying.
Yeah, and that's very much the story of modern-day DTM. Grid positions really are very important, starting somewhere near the front. As Luca Engstler, quickest of anybody in Sector 2. Quickest in Sector 3 at the moment is Kelvin van der Linde, a 38.255 in Sector 3. But Luca Engstler, quickest of anybody in Sector 2. Personal best in Sector 1. So can he string it all together, finish this final sector and move towards the top? Coming into this, he's in P7. Looks like an improvement here as he comes out of the final turn, out onto the pit straight, as out of turn 12, flat out along the pit straight to stop the clock, and it's going to be a 1:36.133 up to P3.
Very nice. The McLarens have bailed for this second half of the session. Clement Schmidt and Bender haven't really been out a great deal as a result, because the track's been getting quicker and quicker. They've dropped back to 18th and 20th, but they've opted to pretty much sit this one out so far. Maybe they'll have another run at it. Still 10 3/4 minutes to go. So Lucas Auer, 1:35.7. It only about 3 or 4 minutes ago, we were seeing the first drivers break into the 1:36s. We're in the 1:35s now. It's drying out rapidly. Christian Engelhardt's gone into the pits now, but he's second quickest. Luca Engstler, a third. So it is Mercedes. Kelvin van der Linde going second, as I said that, with the absolute best third sector time again. So he goes second. Engelhardt in the Lamborghini and Engstler in the Lamborghini pushed out a third and fourth. And another grassy moment, gravelly moment, in fact, for Lucas Auer.
Keep it out the barrier. Now keep it moving. Don't come to a stop. Steam pouring from the side of the car. Go on, power on, power on. It's going to make it to the grass and keep going. But that just shows how hard he's pushing.
Explains why he's come into the pits now, doesn't it? Back on board with Luca Engstler, who started the lap well with a personal best. What was the second sector like? It wasn't an improvement for him, but he still did a 24 points. 24.2 for him.
Yeah.
And that's within a few hundredths of a second of the absolute best. So it's still a good lap, this. It's hold it together in the third sector, and he might improve again. Improvement for Engin Guan has just gone across the line for fourth place. So still the leading Porsche. He's been thereabouts the whole session. He was fastest for the first part of the session. We'll see if Luca Engstler can improve, as we hear now on team radio from Ricardo Feller.
P6, and fastest lap time is a 35.7. Sister car is doing a 35.9.
There you go, all the info you need for Ricardo Feller. That's how quick you are. That's the quickest lap time. He is 6, as you said, but just over half a second away from the best time of Lucas Auer. Although Lucas has had that good couple of laps, but also some wild rides as well, hasn't he?
Yes, he's probably carrying a fair bit of ballast now, having been through the gravel trap a couple of times. Yeah. Marco Wittmann, personal bests in Sector 1 and 2. He's currently in 12th. Personal best in Sector 3. That elevates him up to P4. That's very useful indeed. Some useful information gathered there as well. But bring it home, chap, why don't you?
It's a handbrake turn, that, wasn't it? Turn one, just flick the back end out on the way into that almost 90-degree left-hander. Right, Engin Guan, the Turkish driver, is on it again. Absolute best middle sector so far. His best laps are 1:36.1. He needs to find 3.5 tenths of a second to go to the top of the times. Whether he'll do it or not, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure he's going to improve up into the at least second or third. But again, it can be deceptive with that long final sector. If you get something wrong there, it affects 2 or 3 corners afterwards. He has got it right, though. It goes to the top of the times by nearly 2 tenths of a second. 1:35.573. How long will it last for, though? Because Kelvin van der Linde, absolute best first sector time with the 32.8. So he is flying. You've got Lucas Auer in between them at the moment, who's in the pits, but Kelvin van der Linde, a personal best in the second sector, and he's already the driver that has been quicker through Sector 3 than anybody else. So Kelvin, if he can get anywhere near his best final sector time from earlier on, he should be about to go back to the top of the times here. He needs to find just under 4 tenths of a second. The South African in the Sportsline Audi about to fire himself towards the line. Jack Aitken, second quickest with a 1:35.689. Kelvin van der Linde, here he is then winding his way out of turn 12, and that all looks neat and tidy. They don't get quite as close to the wall, do they, in the wet as they are in the dry. That's fair enough. And he's got a nice clear track ahead of him for the foreseeable. He's about to come over the line, but he lost a lot of time in that last sector.
Yes, clearly had a bit of a moment in Sector 3 at a time when we weren't looking at him, but that's fine. He knows he can do it. This is a information gathering exercise, so he knows how to do Sectors 1, 2 and 3. He avoids Lake Lausitz on turn 1, continues out, and we'll keep going. We've got 6.5 minutes remaining of this session, so lots of useful information has been gathered by all of these drivers.
It's about 10 seconds, didn't he, through that last sector? So maybe he just backed off, or maybe he had a moment somewhere. However, the car is working fine now. He's pushing on at the start of the next lap. Here's his younger brother, the 2022 champion of the DTM, Sheldon van der Linde, out there as well. Currently in 13th place, ahead of René Rast, but behind his other teammate, Marco Wittmann, who's coming to the pits now and is running in 8th place. So Kelvin has another go. Jack Aitken was the big winner on that last lap. Ricardo Feller has come up to 4th as well. So it's Guen, Aitken and Auer, the top 3. Nicky Tim has come up to 4th place. Ricardo Feller in 5th. Kelvin van der Linde in 6th. And it's Engelhart 7th, Engel in 8th, Wittmann 9th and Inkslet down to 10th place. And suddenly, look, Thomas Preining, he's down to 11th position. He was in the top 2 about 5 or 6 minutes ago. Yes,
that's how quick a track evolves, particularly when rain is involved in it. We're still keeping an eye on Kelvin van der Linde. Nothing spectacular in Sectors 1 and 2. Sector 3 once again out onto the pit straight. So this is clearly not going to improve his time from the P6 that he's in. But out he comes, and it's Kelvin van der Linde. Oh, I say it's not going to improve his time. Well, that just proves what we said, that it's not about breaking the records in each sector. It's about pulling it together, because Kelvin van der Linde actually jumps up to P2 despite the fact that he set neither purples nor personal bests in each sector.
Christian Engelhart, 4th quickest, just behind him as well. So it's now Porsche, Guen from Audi, Kelvin van der Linde from Ferrari, Aitken from Lamborghini, Engelhart, and then the best Mercedes still Lucas Auer, who's dropped down to 5th place now, but he has gone back out onto the track. Max Powell has done a personal best first sector. He's another one that's tumbled down the order, having been right up there. He was in the top 4 a while ago, but he's done a personal best first sector. His second sector was only a couple of tenths off the best second sector time we've had as well, so he might be about to claw himself back up the order in the blue Powell Motorsport Lamborghini on his home circuit here. And there are still lots of drivers with green sector times, which means personal best sector times. So the track's still getting a little bit better each time. No improvement on that lap though for this man, Max Powell.
Well, we might have had to have waited a long time for it, but FP2 has turned into be a real thriller in the end, hasn't it? With a little over 4 minutes remaining. It's been man versus machine versus elements, and it has been thoroughly entertaining. Winner so far, An Chen Guen, a 135.573. That is the benchmark. There is the winking Thierry Vermeulen car, headlight out, but still very much on the pace, as he has proven time and time again. P12 at the moment. Personal best in Sector 1. Sector 2, reasonable. What will Sector 3 do? I think this might promote him up from P12. But what do I know? My predictions are notoriously wrong. He crosses the line and he finishes in a P12. Well, there you go. Don't take any bets on my advice.
Mirko Bortolotti has improved, but only to 14th place. Kelvin van der Linde 2nd, Jack Aitken 3rd, are both in the pits now, so that's effectively the end of their session. René Rast, let's hear from him now. He's back in 17th.
Raining like crazy now.
Yeah, anyway, then we scrap this tire.
Started to rain again then, is the report. I thought it looked a bit dimmer over there.
Yes.
Twitchy there, but he's bedding some tyres in. Brand new wet tyres. Oh, awful. You have to really scrape the surface off them. So doing that now in case they're needed to be thrown on in the middle of a race tomorrow if the forecasts are anything to be believed. It's certainly a possibility. Not a definite thing, but it is a possibility that we can get some rain tomorrow afternoon as well.
It's interesting. There's always some work to be done. You think, well, it's raining. OK, we'll park it up and go and have a cup of tea. But no, you've got wet tyres that you need to prepare. It's covering off every eventuality, what might not occur this weekend. So still work to be done, even though there's less than 2.5 minutes remaining. You can see how hard it's raining now. So certainly we're not going to see any greens in the times from this point onwards. I think the lap times are about as good as it's going to get. I think An Chen Guen's 135.573 is probably looking reasonably safe.
Yeah, quickest driver last time around was Luca Engstler with a 1:37.1. So that is, over a second and a half slower than we have been going, and that rain has started to come down very heavily again. And it doesn't take long, does it, for that surface water to rise up again. So we've seen that like a river coming from the back of that BMW of René Rast. Looks great though in that electric blue livery, doesn't it?
Oh, gorgeous car, gorgeous livery, great driver. Good combination, and if we have a season where René Rast doesn't win at least 3 or 4 races, it will be a big surprise. Multi-champion, legendary driver on board with the defending champion Thomas Preining, going wide into the gravel trap, and that's a replay, so he does keep it all going, but suddenly conditions getting worse. Thomas Preining picking up a whole load of gravel. He rejoins that lap well and truly scrap, as indeed probably the tyres that are on that car.
Turn 8, I think that was, just at the end of that back straight at the start of the third and final sector of the lap. Got going again, but it was just didn't turn in. Where you were hitting the brakes and how hard you were braking before doesn't work anymore. That rain that has relentlessly come down, and this is another replay. It's Christian Engelhardt going through shot. They've got 50 seconds left to go then. Bad news, the track safari has been cancelled as well now. This is where we get a couple of buses with fans that go onto the track and the DTM cars drive around them. But as you all know, if you go to the zoo when it's raining, all the animals don't come out and play, do they? So we've had to bid it off, I'm afraid.
I thought we were going to see giraffes and hippopotamus running around the track, but no. The track safari, it's the pictures give you a double take when you see the videos and photos. You see buses on the track with cars racing around them. It's like something out of a weird fantasy film. Such a shame. Hopefully they can get the track safari done later on in the weekend. Certainly it's a great experience. I'd like to do it myself one day.
So effectively, that's the end of the session. There's still a few seconds to go, but everybody's calling it a day by the looks of things and coming in. We're not going to see any improvements in lap times, but it was a lively session, as I say. It's a possibility that we'll get some weather like this tomorrow particularly. So go out there and get the information, because it might just happen in the middle of the race tomorrow, or the start of the race, or the end of the race. So you need to be in a position to understand where the grip is, where not to go. And we've seen a couple of places where that surface water and the puddles definitely gather, and what you've got to do to get those tyres working at their best. And of course, new compound of wet tyre from Pirelli this year, only being used in the DTM until it's released worldwide next year. So the more data, the more info you can get on those tyres, the better, because they're the most important things on the car in these weather conditions. Engine Nguyen, though, with a good session.
Speedboat.
Yeah, absolute fastest in the second session. And he's, so to speak, mopping it up, isn't he, at the end of this session. 1:35.573, which put him a 10th quicker than Kelvin van der Linde. And Kelvin was only 0.06 of a second quicker than the third best driver in that session, Jack Aitken. And then you only had a 48,000th of a second gap back to Christian Engelhardt. He was only 34 thousandths quicker than Lucas Auer in 5th. He was only 49 thousandths quicker than Nicky Tim in 6th place. And so on and so forth. It goes down to 8th place, just thousandths of a second between each of those positions. But a star turn from Engine Nguyen, who, for one, will be hoping that there's plenty more rain tomorrow. This is anything to go by.
Look at how much water that car is displacing properly. Yeah, bring it in, park it up, quit while you're ahead. That's what I say. He's into the pits now. Of course, the session over, but yeah, the rain is absolutely chucking it down. Really entertaining session.
Yeah, and of course the best thing about iEngine's car is it could be nighttime. You can still see that car. It's so bright and green, so it really stands out on a dim day like this. So Engine Nguyen quickest then for the Manthey EMA team, ahead of Kelvin van der Linde, Jack Aitken 3rd, Christian Engelhardt in 4th, Lucas Auer and Nicky Tim rounding out the top 6, Ricardo Feller in 7th place, 7 different nationalities in the top 7, make it 8 from 8 with Maro Engel just behind them as well. Marco Wittmann, best BMW in 9th, Luca Engstler in 10th, Thomas Preining was high up in the session for most of it, but fell away as it dried out later on. 11th for him, Thierry Vermeulen in 12th, Max Powell 13th, Mirko Bortolotti 14th, ahead of Sheldon van der Linde, and Arjun Maini, René Rast, Lucas Stoltz, Clement Schmidt and Ben Durr, but neither of the McLarens really went out for that final 15 minutes or so of the session when the track was at its best. So that's not really, I don't think, representative of where they are. Certainly the pair of the McLarens looked good in the dry conditions earlier on. But dry conditions we did not have in that second free practice session. A delayed session which got underway and gave us lots of track activity in the end. Jack Aitken right up there in third place overall. We'll be pleased with that, and the fact that he did not just one good lap, but he did several quick lap times. So Jack Aitken in a good place. He'll have no success ballast to carry, but he's got the BOP ballast to try and deal with if there's a dry track tomorrow. Kelvin van der Linde was only 0.06 of a second quicker than the Ferrari and finished in second place. And then first place going to Ayenjan Nguyen with a 1:35.573, top of the times in the Porsche. Tomorrow then, qualifying is at 1:30 in the afternoon, a later time than normal, and the race won't start until 5 o'clock local time, as we have a change of schedule to make up for the TV clash of times with the World Championships for the hockey. That's it for us. Goodbye for now.